Hello, everybody. It's me, BMR. It's late night. It's Friday. What are you doing? Well, I know what I'm doing. I don't do this very often. I normally don't do an impromptu live show. I just, I don't do it, so I'm kind of feeling it out here tonight. As a lot of you know, a lot of my good friends are at the Dogman Conference down in Texas. And I got to tell you, BMR, I'm a little bummed out about it because everybody that I know is down there, and they're doing their thing, right? There'll be a lot of great guests, a lot of great speakers at the conference. Tex is doing a talk down there, and good old BMR did want to go down, but life things happen. In fact, I was pretty geeked because typically it's my fantasy football weekend draft, which is the first reason why I wasn't going, because I've been doing it now for 30 years. So I just could not cancel a 30-year activity that I've been doing with the same 12 guys from high school and college. And in fact, during the 30-year period, we've had a fallen member. So it's kind of a celebration of our friends that have passed on. And I got to be honest, I just love me some fantasy football. I am a NFL nut. So what happened was we had to back our fantasy football draft to next week. So I'm like, man, this is awesome. Now I can go to the conference. Well, unfortunately, last month, a great friend of the family had passed away. So they're doing a celebration of life this weekend. So it's kind of bittersweet for me. I was high for about an hour until I found out that we have to do the and I don't have to, but I'm going to because it's only right because I love this person that's no longer with us. So I'm doing that this weekend. So enough of the sad news. The cool thing is I'm gonna spend some time with you lovely people this evening, and I really didn't have a format set up. And so I was just thinking that, you know what, I'm going to do something for my audience, the people that follow the show, and I appreciate all of you. I see Werewolf, Paranormal Highway, Eric, Chiro, Midwest, Jim Christie. Hey, Jim. Scott Morian, Brown Dwarf, Danny Staten. Scrolling down, scrolling down. Aussie Sue, how are you? So there's maybe Rat Sass. Hi, Rat. You're new. Roger Blair. How are you? So I'm sure a few folks will come on in. If I missed you, I do apologize about that. But so anyway, yeah, I was just sitting there, a little sad, a bittersweet. I said, well, I'm going to go on and just do a show and see if you guys like it. Again, I didn't really have anything planned. So I was sitting back and I just decided to do this about 2 hours ago. I said, what the hell is BMR going to talk about? You know, I found, and there's a couple things that I'll talk with you guys. I've got a really cool cryptid story, an encounter story that I think you guys will find fascinating that has never been published. It's not in the book. And for those of you that have bought the book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, you can find it on Amazon. The link for that is in the chat. It's under Amazon. For those of you that bought it, I know Eric's bought it, Chiro's bought it, Midwest has bought it. Thanks, you guys. So I was thinking about telling a story, not necessarily out of the book. Maybe later in the show I may, but I had a great cryptid encounter story that was told to me 2 weeks ago from a friend of mine that it just floored me, you guys. But before we get on with that, as most of you all know, with all my team that's in Texas, it's Tex, Texas Front Porch. He comes on Mondays at 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesdays is Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Wednesdays is Jason McLean questions everything. He's back. He's live with 90 Show at 8 o'clock in the East. Thursday is brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Thursday night, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. They come on at 9 in the East. You want some more woo with the Blondes and the Boo? Well, you can also get them Fridays, 9 in the East. Saturdays is Tex Infamous Minds, 3 o'clock in the East. And my buddy Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio, Saturday and Sunday, 10 in the East. So they're like my great friends. They're all at the conference, and I wish them well. Hope they have a great job. So yeah, I'm kicking back. They're all hooping and hollering. They're all be speaking, and again, I said, well, I'm going to do a Friday show and see how you like. Hi, Larry. Hi, JM35 for those that I've missed. So yeah, I've never really done this. And before I get into the cool cryptid story, I wanted to tell you that I just found this out a couple weeks ago. I wanted to bring you up. Hi, Jessica S. Good to see you. I want to tell you guys, because most of us are all cryptid people. We dig Bigfoot, Dogman, cryptids. But I must tell you guys, on the shows, we're delving into the paranormal. We're delving into aliens. We're delving into UFOs. And I just came across an article, and I don't like to read to you guys on a live show. I'll read you guys an encounter story on my channel and make a video out of it. I don't mind doing that. But when I'm doing something live and I have guests in the audience like you guys, I don't want to sit there and read. I find it to be boring. Anybody can do that. But this is something I'm going to read. It's take about 2 minutes, and I want everybody's thought on this, and I'll give you mine because I found this to be fascinating. So this is a little bit about Mars. This is about Mars on there's life on Mars supposedly, and this just came out the other day, you guys. And this article says we may have already found life on Mars in the 1970s, and us, the United States, accidentally killed it. I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to read this though. It'll take about 90 seconds, and we'll get on with this and the rest of the show. When NASA's Viking landers conducted biological experiments on Mars in the 1970s, they reportedly found positive evidence of life, but may have accidentally drowned it in the process in the 1970s. NASA sent two Viking landers to Mars to search the planet for signs of life. Now, astrobiologist Dirk Schultz Makuch claimed the landers did indeed find evidence of microbiological life forms on Mars, but may have accidentally destroyed this in the process. He says, I dropped a suggestion that some people surely will find provocative, that we already did find life on Mars nearly 50 years ago, but that we inadvertently killed it, Schultz Makuch says. A planetary habitability and astrobiology professor at the Technical University Berlin in Germany, and a former fellow at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. The Viking landers, a pair of NASA space probes equipped with both imaging technology and instruments to test for life, touched down on Mars in 1976. There, they began conducting a series of biological tests that to this day remain the only experiments to test for life directly on another planet. Unfortunately, these tests saw contradicting results that have baffled researchers for decades. For example, one of these tests found trace amounts of chlorine organics. At the time, these organic materials were assumed to be the result of contamination from Earth and dismissed it. At best, inconclusive evidence of life, but after subsequent explorations, like those by the Phoenix lander and the Curiosity and Perseverance of rovers, scientists now know that these chlorinated organics are indeed native to Mars. Schultz Makuch believes that the very processes used to carry out the tests may have destroyed any evidence of life, perhaps accounting for the experiments confusing making the results confusing. He says one of the tests involved added water to samples of Martian soil to test for evidence of metabolism and photosynthesis. Scientists were operating under the assumption that life on Mars would be similar to that of life on Mars. I thought that was interesting. I found that today on an article as I was doing a little bit of reading. What do you guys think? I find it kind of strange that they're going to bring up this issue about that this lander landed on these microorganisms and killed them. Certainly, if that was the case, would there not have been other microorganisms about the planet that they could have probed for? I don't know. I thought it vague. I found it interesting, and it always goes back to being information reported to us that is, again, just vague. It's not clear, right? Just like the information that we get on UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot, Dogman. There was nothing concise or clear, but it proves this, you guys. We're never going to get anything clear, right? I mean, why was that article, in my opinion, why was that even posted? I just thought it was just something for some person to make a couple bucks and make an article. To me, not newsworthy, but I wanted your opinion on that. Leave it in the comments after the show if you like. Hey, Jessica, yeah, and give me your thoughts on that because, again, I know a lot of you are cryptid people, but a lot of you also are into life on other planets. Certainly, we're not naive to think that we are the only people on this planet. The galaxy is vast and there's other life. I do believe that. But if you're going to come up and post an article, give me some more meat. Don't make me just think like I think about people that put out reports about Bigfoot, or they condemn it because there's not enough information. This again was vague. Leave a comment if you like after the show, or leave it in chat, and we can get into that. But I found it to be interesting to start the show. And again, if you are joining late, doing an impromptu. Thanks for everybody. All my friends are at the conference, but that's fine. BMR rolls on, and I'm testing new waters to see if you guys like the show. So, getting back to the cryptid world, I just came up with I found out about a great story from a person I've known my entire life. And this story I found to be fascinating. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, maybe closer to a young teen, it was myself and two buddies of mine. We were up north, and one of my friends, his name was Bill, and we were at his mom and dad's cottage up north, not in the Upper Peninsula, but it was north of where I currently live. And so it was Bill, my friend, Brian, myself. So there's three of us, and then there was the dad and his two brothers. So there was like three young boys in our early teens and three adult men, probably in their 30s. And we're at the cabin in the woods. We had been up there a couple days, having a good time. We were playing football, wiffle ball. We rode some motorbikes, mini bikes, if you will, through the trails in the woods. So, right around, I think, the third day, because we spent a week up there. Hi, Susan Woodcarver. How are you? Hilton Whittlewood. So, yeah, we're having this great time. So it was dusky dawn, and the sun is starting to settle. So the three of us, the three boys, me, Bill, and Brian, we were playing like hide and seek. We're playing like a capture the flag. Again, you guys, this is a long time, but we're playing some war game, and we're out in the woods. In fact, we were on the trail where we were riding the mini bikes. So the three of us guys, we started up the trail, and we were going to set up our own little forts where you had to capture the flag from the fort. So we're playing about a half hour in. And now the three of us guys, we meet up down the trail, and now there's this big tree. And all of a sudden, out of the tree, from behind this big tree, three werewolves jumped out. They looked like werewolves. They stood right in the middle of the path, and they're staring at us three boys, and they start running at us. Well, we turn around, we're scared, and we're running, we're running. Then all of a sudden, as we run, my friend Bill falls to the ground. But before this, though, we start hearing laughter. And I'm starting to get the sense in my mind that it was somebody playing a trick on us. Bill falls to the ground, and Bill had a little pocket knife on him, and he took it out and he got it. And before this like wolf creature got to him, the wolf took off a mask, and it was his dad. Laughing, playing a hoax on us, playing a trick on us. So we all kind of start laughing. But that was Bill, and I'm laughing along with Bill. And my one friend up the road. Now you have to remember there was three adult males and three of us kids. The one that captured the son took off the mask. Hey, don't be frightened. It's just your dad. We're scaring you. Another one of my friends kind of let out a kind of like a little scream and said like something like "ow," like he was injured. And the other friend was just nowhere to be found. In fact, he beelined all the way off that trail, all the way to the house. So during this time, we get, Bill, his dad, we go find our other friend. It was Brian, and the other kid made it to the house. Well, he had a scratch on his leg. And I'm going to tell you guys the scratch on my friend's leg was a claw mark. And it was a significant gouge in it. In fact, he had to go to the doctor and get stitches. The other friend made it to the house. Now, as I mentioned, the other man that was dressed in the wolf mask, he returns. Okay, takes off the mask. And then Bill got mad at his buddy. He said, "What did you do? I mean, we're just having fun with these guys, and all of a sudden, what'd you do? Did you take a knife and cut this kid? I mean, because the kid was bleeding. My friend was bleeding." He goes, "No, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?" So now they're looking for the third male adult, and he's nowhere to be found, you guys. So, in backing up, three guys, 13 years old, and three men, 30 years old. Scarce in the woods. All three men are dressed as werewolves. Two of the men return, take off the mask. One of the boys got slashed on his leg. Now, the third man was not to be seen again or found. So the guys gather up me and my friend, and we make it back to the house where my other friend was already made it to. He made it all the way to the house. And they get back to the house asking where I forget this other guy's this third party who disappeared or left, whatever his name was. They're calling him on the phone. Where are you? Why did you disappear? So this third party was gone. So the other two guys are thinking that this guy got a little carried away and slashed out at this kid and cut him. And everyone's thinking that maybe he felt bad about what he did, was embarrassed, so he split town. He left. So the men are trying to find their friend. We can't find him. Our friend has to go and get stitches that night at the hospital. He had to go to like the ER room, whatever the ER room was back then. I think it was just a hospital. So our friend gets back. He's stitched up, gets his 4 or 5 stitches. There was nothing bad. It was just, but it was a wound that needed stitches. But the two adult men are wondering where their third buddy is. And they're calling this guy. He won't return the phone call. And back then, you guys, were not cell phones. So they're like calling the landline. So they apologized to the boy and they asked the boy, did the third man dressed in the mask, did he cause his injury to you? Did he like cut you? What did he do to you? And our third friend said, no, there wasn't a man in a mask that slashed me. It was a wolf. So the two men, they dropped their jaws. Me and my other friend, we drop our jaw like a wolf. They said, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, there was a wolf that slashed at me. And he goes, I'm pretty sure it wasn't whoever this guy's name was. I forget the name of you guys. This is a long time ago. I don't recall the name, but he slashed at me. But it wasn't him. It was an animal. So a couple weeks go by, and again, my one of the parties, offered called the parents and said, "Hey, look, I don't know what happened in the forest. We think he was attacked by a wolf. We played a prank on the kids, and we think an actual real predator got involved with this and attacked your child." Well, I guess that was a big. I guess somebody got sued in this. Again, I never seen these people. I never seen these adults again. This was a friend of the family. When my mom and dad heard about the story, I was not allowed to play with these kids or that family, and they were like really upset about it. So 2 months. So life goes on. That was 30 years ago, you guys. So life goes on. About 2 months ago, my friend Brian calls me and he goes, "Hey, do you remember playing back in the woods where me and you we were scared by the guys dressed up in the wolf costumes and the one guy disappeared and our other friend got slashed in the leg?" I said, "Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. It was pretty scary." I thought, as a kid, I thought that was really weird. Well, one of the dad got in touch with my buddy Brian and had made mention. He got in touch with him through the friend, and he said, "I saw that Rob, he's doing some podcast." And he goes, "Do you remember back in the day?" Now this guy's telling the story to my friend. "Do you remember back in the day where we dressed up as werewolves and attacked and scared you guys, and my one buddy was left?" And we're like, "Yeah, we remember." Whatever became of that? He goes, "Yeah, we had a falling out, and the kid that got injured, we got sued, this and that. It was just a big ordeal." Well, they never said that their friend that they never found, he was found 2 months later. He was all pretty much almost he was found 2 miles up the road, naked and dead in a ditch. You guys, that was pretty freaky. So it got me to thinking, naked, dead in a ditch. And you know how we talk about werewolves, we talk about shapeshifters. Most grown men don't run around naked in the woods. And we all thought that this was probably a wolf from the area that maybe got this kid. But then it begs the question, that is very odd that the person that allegedly clawed this kid disappears, can't find him. You find him 2 months later, dead in the woods, 2 miles up from where we were playing and where we got scared. I'm not saying that's a werewolf, but I'm going to tell you something. It's definitely, as my buddy Barry Littleton will say, that is food for thought. What do you guys think? I mean, I don't know. It kind of makes sense to me. A person of the three men of the party, they disappear, right? The one man they don't contact with, they find him dead 2 months later, naked, 2 miles from where we were playing. Was it a werewolf, you guys? I don't know. I heard the story, like I said, not too long ago. My friend was telling me about it. And the only reason that my friend was contacted is because the old man, now they're old men now, they're in their 80s now, saw me on a podcast on this show and got a hold of him because they're related with a mother or an aunt or somebody. But haven't spoke to this guy in over 30 years, 40 years, you guys, 50 years. Hell, I was a kid. If they were 30, that was probably 50 years. Well, I'm only 50, so 30 plus years. Isn't that strange how life is? Here I am doing a podcast. I talk about dogman, werewolves, and somebody out of the blue happens to see me on a show and makes a contact 30 years later to my one buddy and tells a story about what had happened. That is pretty creepy. I actually should have saved that for a Halloween show. So I don't know. I thought you guys would find that fascinating because I certainly did. Do I believe it? I don't know what to tell you guys. Was he pulling somebody's leg? Hey, maybe. I do know this as a fact, though. That man never returned, and my friend did have to go to the hospital because he was cut. He was clawed at. So, what do you think? Leave in a comment. It's crazy. You know, I'm doing this show tonight because, yeah, again, nothing to do. I've never done a live impromptu show at night, and I was just kicking around. I said, I have BMR. Why don't I go on and talk about something? And then when I heard about that story not too long ago, I wanted to present it to you guys. J at M35S. What other stories come from those woods or around there, Rob? I don't know if there's any stories from around there. I can tell you where this took place, though. I will tell exactly where this took place. This was in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Back when I was a kid in Farmington Hills, Michigan, it was all woodlands, all woodlands. And probably about a decade ago, I went back to that same area, and there are no. It's sad, you guys. There are no trees there anymore. It's all the dirt roads are now cement or blacktop. All the cute little houses are now mega mansions. You would not even expect it or thought that there was a beautiful wood in there. The woods are totally gone. So yeah, so about that area, I don't know. But to answer your question, as far as dogmen, the state of Michigan is the state of Michigan. Wexford, Michigan, is the capital for dogman. Many dogman sightings have been there. In fact, my my encounter with my Bigfoot was in Wexford, Michigan. It was in Cadillac, Michigan, but the county was Wexford, which is known for dogman sightings. In fact, one of the first dogman sightings in my state was out of Wexford, Michigan. So yeah, so later on after the show, leave a comment what you think on that story. True, not. I do know. Again, the only facts I know: the kid did get a scratch mark, and the person that turned up missing was found dead 2 months later. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm leaning toward something nefarious. That's for sure. With that being said, we got about 30. Well, we got like 37 people in here, and I didn't expect to have anybody because I was, hey, freaky geek, because I was just sitting here to just, waste a little time. Did I verify the dead guy? No, I was told. That's all. I mean, hey, I was a kid. 2 months later, the guy, he's dead. Okay. In fact, those two other guys, except for Brian, I've never seen again, ever. Because when word got out about what had happened to the kids, first of all, my mom and dad were not at all happy that these three men scared us like that. Yeah, we're all good for practical jokes, but I think what really flipped my parents' lid was this. A person got injured, a person had to go to the hospital and had to get stitches. And they were assuming one of those three guys was a nutcase, right? 2 months later, the guy's dead. Hey, my mom and dad are like, well, I'm sorry to tell you, they're no longer your friend. And I find it odd, though, that my buddy Brian got contacted 30, 40 years later, you guys. It is odd. It's very odd to me. And the guy said he's seen my podcast. Apparently he did, but I'm sure he don't know. I didn't look like this when I was 13 years old. I don't throw my last name out there. I don't think the guy knew in fact, I only knew one of the three guys, the guy and his two brothers, or the brother and the friend, or whatever it was. Again, it was a long time ago. Very strange story. I wanted to share that though, because I've been kind of wondering about that. Hey Chiro, hey Neoma, thanks for joining. Freaky Riker, good to see y'all in here. Didn't expect to have a big turnout. I'm just sitting here kind of doing a live impromptu. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? And I normally don't do this either. If anybody got the story, I just put the link if you want to join me. If you got a crazy story, like I told you guys, I don't like reading. I read you guys that UFO, that Martian encounter earlier. But since I'm still here and since I still have an audience in here, I will tell you what. Put a one in chat if you want me to read. Hi, C Duke. Put a one if you want me to read one of the stories out of this. I know many of you like C Duke have bought it already because I don't know if I can do it for you if you like. Yeah, thanks, JM35. I will tell you this though, before I don't really like to read stuff. My neighbor lives next door to me. He's a pretty cool guy and he knows about my podcast. And he asked me, Rob, did you really have a Bigfoot encounter? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I did, talking to my neighbor. And my neighbor's been new here for about 3 years. And this over this past summer, for those of you that have not heard, where I live in an area where there's a horseshoe that surrounds my property, or actually not my property, our community. And this creek is we call it Dead Man's Curve at a section because back in the 1970s, there was two teenagers driving in a convertible. Back in the day, you didn't wear seat belts, and they were speeding down what is now called Dead Man's Curve, and it's been that same name ever since. They're speeding down, and what happens at this curve is it's a straight runway, and it probably goes a good 70 yards of straight, but then all of a sudden it takes a hard 90-degree angle. Not quite 90 because it is a curve, you guys, but you know what I'm talking about. It's a very sharp curve. And at the apex of the curve, there is the wood line, and then there's a creek and a bridge. Okay. So this couple, they took this straightaway about 70, 80 miles an hour. And what happened was, you guys, they didn't see the curve or the turn, and they hit it full on, and they went straight through the wood line, straight through the trees. Now, when I say wood line, you guys, you got to remember it wasn't dense, it wasn't thick, but there was trees there. And right in back of the trees, maybe 10 feet, was the creek, and there was a bridge. And they're again, you guys, driving a convertible, man and a woman, kids, they were high schoolers, old enough to drive. They caroom towards the creek. Now, you guys, as the convertible car is descending into the creek, there is a bridge. Okay. At the Before hitting the bridge, the guy, he flies out of the car. He gets killed. The girl, for whatever reason, she is still in the car. She doesn't get extracted like the boy or the man did. She's still in the car. And then her head, you guys, hits the bottom of the bridge and she gets decapitated. So they both died. They were both teenagers. And then that straight and that curve, that bridge was called Dead Man's Curve. And I knew about this story when I was a kid in grade school. So this is a place where my friends and I would go and hang out because it was a creepy place to go to. You know, we would go down there and just hang out. You know, we were in junior high school. You know, we all went down. We were smoking. You hid smoking from your mom and dad. We would smoke down there, sneak a bottle of booze and drink. but it was a very creepy place. So a lot of the kids from middle school and from junior high school and some from high school, we would just hang out because we like hanging out at creepy places. Now everybody knows me. I'm a weirdo. I like creepy stuff like this. So yeah, I wanted to be there. Let's look for ghosts. So we used to hang out there for a couple 3 years. We started finally getting a little bit older, and the nuance of Dead Man's Bridge and looking for ghosts started to wear off. It was boring. Okay, big deal. There ain't no ghosts here. We done did the smoking, drinking down here. We're getting older. It's kind of past tense. Not interested. So about a year later, me and my buddies, two of my friends from high school, decide to go there though, just to kind of hang out. You know, it's nighttime. We have a bonfire going because now we're at this point in our lives, we're starting to take in Mother Nature because it's very pretty though, you guys. Now the woods now, this Dead Man's Bridge incident happened in like the 70s, but now you're talking when I was down there, it was like in like the 90s. So the tree line is grown in, the creek, it's just beautiful. So we're kind of enjoying nature and we're going out and we're still intrigued about ghosts and what had happened. And we had heard stories that people reported seeing ghosts there, right? Some people talked about all sorts of high strangeness that went down there. In fact, well, I got another story. Yeah, it just reminded me. I got to tell that after this really quick. So me and my two buddies, were sitting down at Dead Man's Bridge hanging out. So we decided it's time to go home. So I'm 18 years old. We're seniors in high school. And we walk up from the creek to the trail because they put a trail in there where you could walk down. It was not for it was for service vehicles only, though, that maintained the area. I mean, if you drove a car, you weren't going nowhere. There was a dead end. So me and my two buddies were walking down the trail, and we're walking towards up the trail towards our subdivision of in the neighborhood. So for whatever the reason, one of my buddies stops. He turns around, and he goes, "Hey, Rob." I go, "What?" He goes, "Hey, stop. Check this out for a moment." I'm like, "Well, what? What's going on?" I stopped. My other friend, we turned around. His name was Darren. We turn around and we see this kind of whitish silver um figure or something, but we can't make it out because everybody it's maybe 50 yards away. For those that aren't familiar with 50 yards, is maybe the half the length of a football field, but it's glowing, but it's getting closer. And so we're standing there on the trail. We're just looking at this thing as it gets closer. And on the trail, you got the woods on both sides of the trail. It was probably only another 20 or 30 yards before we got to the clearing where you got into the neighborhood. So this light, whatever this is getting closer. It's getting closer. And now we're starting to notice it's taking on the form of a human. It has a human shape. In fact, it looks like a woman in a dress, like a long, tattered gown, like a short gown, not a gown from head to toe, a gown I would say like a younger person would wear, a young girl would wear, high schooler, maybe down, you know, top of the knees, perhaps, or maybe at the knees. But it's coming, but you could tell it's a figure in it, and now we see does look like a woman or a girl, but it's getting closer. We're starting to get a little bit scared. Now we can see this thing, and we before we start to turn and run, the head of this figure, this apparition, it disappears from the top of the shoulders. Now all it is it starts coming at us, and it's a figure of a woman minus the head. And it is coming faster and faster. And it's probably 3 feet off the ground. Me and my two buddies, again, different buddies from the last story, we turn around and we run. I ran all the way home because it's not too far from my childhood home. I ran all the way home without looking back till I got in my back door. My two buddies did the same. And again, back in the day when I was 18 years old in high school, there was no cell phones. So we immediately get home and we try to talk to each other on the landline. And we all decide that we're going to get together the next day at my buddy's parents' garage because we set up a fort in his garage, right? So I had the idea. I brought over um, pencils and some like drawing paper. I got to my two friends and said, "Hey, look, here's what we're gonna do. I know we all saw something last night. We don't know what the heck it is, but we saw something." So I said, each of us let's draw down what we saw. Right? What did we see? So the three of us, we get our separate areas in the in the upstairs bunker of the garage, and we all draw what we thought we saw. Okay, we're all done, and we all turned in our paper, and we all drew the exact same thing. In fact, two of us drew the ghost of the woman with a head, and then we drew a picture of her without the head. And my one buddy just draw a picture of a woman without a head. So the three of us, everybody, we saw the same type of thing. We all in our minds. So now we know we're not really hallucinating or dreaming or making things up. We've seen something. Our drawings were pretty accurate to each other. And yeah, that was quite the experience. Going back many years later, I'm at the Dead Man's Creek, and this isn't really a scary story, but there's something weird about that place because we're over there. It's a nice place, you guys. It's a cool place to hang out. I was standing in the field, and I'm looking ahead, maybe 30 feet in front of me. I see this stick pop up, and when I say a stick, it had to be 3 feet tall. But when it popped up, everybody, it's like it just popped up like a dry stick pops out of the ground. I mean, it happens. We've all seen it. It wasn't unusual. I see this thing pop straight up from the ground. I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, whatever. But the unusual thing then, the 3 feet of stick, it rose up another 6, 8 inches, and it starts running, literally running to the creek line. And I start chasing after this thing. And you guys, are reminding me of the Planters Peanut Man. It had these little thin legs, and it's running towards the creek line, and its arms. It had little arms, and it was looked like an animation, but the arms were like pumping back and forth, like it's running, just like back and forth, and the legs are churning. And I'm trying to catch up to this thing, and it had a lot of speed, and it went down the creek. It got to the edge of the creek and went right in the creek. And you guys, when it hit the creek, it laid in the water. And guess what it turned into? It just turned to an average looking stick, an average looking stick, and floated down the water. So yeah, I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff. I thought, yeah, I've seen Bigfoot, you guys, but I've seen ghosts. I've seen a lot of unusual things, and all true stories. I mean, the things I've seen certainly are true stories. The earlier story about the werewolf, I'm still skeptical about certain things, but something did happen. A friend got slashed, and a person did die. That is fact. I'm not suggesting that guy was a werewolf, everybody, for just joining us, but yeah, I've had a lot of creepy, weird things happen to me. You know. Yeah, love you, love went right into the creek. It went right down the creek and jumped in the creek line, and it swam off. It didn't swim off. It floated like a dead piece of wood right down the creek. Michigan is pretty wild. I've had a wild childhood with strange stuff, Riker. So is this why I don't like stick bugs? Yeah, love, I don't like stick bugs. I'm not even a fan of bugs. I don't even like crickets. I don't like any. I'm not a bug fan. I'm really not. Never have been. But so I don't know, you guys. Again, this was just an impromptu show, and I wanted to put it together and see what was going on. What I could do is I could call it, or I could. I gotta let my dog out over here. I could take a 5-minute break. I don't know if anybody wanted me to read a story from my book. I wasn't paying attention. I asked you guys to put a one. Here's what I'm gonna do. I gotta put up the 5-minute thing, let my doggy out, let him go bathroom. When I come back, if you guys want me to stick on, I'll stick on. If not, I can call it night. I just had fun doing this, telling a couple stories. So put it in the chat. I'll be back. I'll do my normal 5-minute break thing, let out my dogs. It's gonna take about 4 or 5 minutes. And if you're still here, you're still here. BMR. See you in a few.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Thanks for everybody for spending your time with me here tonight. I was kind of bored. For those joining late, I was kind of bored. Most of my friends are at the Dogman conference. I'm not getting into why I couldn't get down there. I didn't make it. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go live and see what happens. I don't know what happened there, but anyways, I'm back. And so yeah, I said, I'm kind of bored. I'll just try a live stream, an impromptu, no subject matter. Earlier, I read a story about alien life on Mars. If you guys want to go back and check that, you can. Then I talked about, of course, that weird encounter story in the woods where these three guys scared me and my three friends, and one of the guys turned up dead. My friends got slashed in the leg. So take that for what it's worth. It was a pretty creepy time in my life. And then, of course, I told you just now about Dead Man's Bridge. So that story there. And what I'm going to do is if anybody wants to pop on and tell a story, I'll throw the link out in the chat. And I normally don't do that either. And what I normally don't like to do is read to you guys. I don't mind reading encounter stories like I do every Friday. I put out an encounter story. Today I put one out about Bigfoot in the Upper Peninsula in Escanaba. This guy sent me this email, and this guy, his story was pretty. He asked me what I thought it was. He asked me if I thought it was a Bigfoot that he saw. I did the story today. It's dropped. It's in my on the channel. And I told the guy, yeah, I think you probably did. I mean, this guy kept this bottled up inside himself for 50 years. And that's a cool thing. You know what, you guys? That's what I love about the channels. I love Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. There's so many people out there that are afraid to tell their story from ridicule. This guy sends me an email. He says, "Hey Rob, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't subscribe to your show." He goes, "In fact, I don't buy anything online. I don't have a smartphone. I want to be by myself. I'm a loner. I don't want to get caught up in technology. I don't want people knowing my information." So this guy, everybody, he is totally off the grid. Now, he does watch the show because he'll go on YouTube and he knows the name of my channel. He'll type it in and he'll watch. So he's been watching for some time. So he sent me an email about an encounter that he had when he was 18 years old. And I did that story today. And in reflecting back, that's why I love doing these shows and these encounter stories because there's more people running around worried about what other people think about you. You know, I just told you guys a story that happened to me in the woods. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me. It's something that happened. Now, was the guy a werewolf, you guys? Well, you know what? Flip a coin. Flip a coin. Probably not a werewolf, but that was a weird story, regardless. Getting slashed and the death. So I welcome anybody's story. I will never ridicule or judge anybody if they have a story. If you want to do a story in anonymity, this is the place to be. So, with that being said, my email is beyondbmr@gmail.com if you'd like me to do a video on your story because you just don't want it out there. And I get it. I was lost and alone for a long time when I had my Bigfoot encounter. You guys, I had nowhere to turn to. I felt like a freak. I felt that if I told my story, nobody would believe me. I felt that people would just ridicule me. I was afraid that I would be judged. So, really, the reason why I do a lot of what I do today, the reason why I wrote my book, the reason why the Bigfoot Michigan Rob channel even exists, it wasn't really for my own benefit. It was for the reasoning behind what I do because I was alone. I felt that I had nowhere to go. And I'm not unique to this. There are a lot of people that tell a lot of people's stories. And I get it. And I commend them for that. But I happen to have an encounter. I've happened to have experiences that have changed my life. I owned a bar for 13 years. Prior to that, I worked for Ford Motor Company. I left Ford. I opened a bar. My first 3 years running my bar, I didn't make a dime. I got divorced because good old BMR, who had a good job, drained the bank account and didn't make a dime for 3 years. I had to move into my mom and dad's basement as a 40-year-old dude. The wife left me. I didn't know you wanted to do that, Rob. Well, I probably should have told you that, I guess, you know. Then when I had my encounter, it just changed me again. I've gone through like metamorphoses in my life, you guys. I've like been a different person throughout stages of my life. But I think for me, it's a positive thing. You know, when I had my encounter, I thought I thought life was over. You know, Cindy passed away, and I was like, man, in a dark place. So the reason I wrote the book was to bring about these encounter stories that people are too scared or they don't want people to know about them. So they're in anonymity. So I put a link if anybody wants to join. But I will tell you this though, I don't like reading. I think to people that are in a live audience, because to me I find it to be boring. But I will read a story from my book since we're talking about werewolves or dogmen. I will a lot of these stories. I try to find one here that's not too long because I don't want to bore you guys. I really don't because this is for my video. But since you're still here, I'm going to go ahead and I'll read you one of the stories from the book, which is available on Amazon. In fact, a lot of the people in the chat room, a lot of you guys have bought this already. And I really, really do appreciate you buying it. You don't know what that means to me. Super chat here is also open if you care to donate to that to help the channel. But I really appreciate it. It means a lot. So I'm gonna read this, and I don't like doing this, so I picked one that shouldn't take too long. But this story from the book, here it is, the book. This story I call "Late for the Party." It was early spring in Southwest Pennsylvania. I had been driving my Jeep Wrangler down a long stretch of roadway, sandwiched between a deep, intense tree line from the forest on either side of my vehicle. I was running late for my mother's birthday and decided to take a shortcut through the forest to save time. My mom always told me that I was the last to arrive and the last to leave for any family function. This was this was becoming more apparent as I was unsure of this shortcut and started to get anxiety over not knowing where I was going. In fact, I was lost and I went to use my cell phone to call my brother. He was more familiar with this shortcut, and I could not get a signal on my phone. My anxiety was running high at this time, and the sun was starting to set on the road ahead of me. I rolled down the windows of my Jeep as I felt the feeling of nausea in my stomach, and I decided to pull over for just a moment. I got out of my car and walked towards the tree line when I noticed a set of glowing red eyes approximately 20 or 30 yards gleaming brightly from the dense forest. The eyes were relatively low to the ground, perhaps 4 feet off the ground. I had to look several times at those eyes as they appeared to be getting closer and closer to me. Then I realized they were in fact getting closer, and the pace of this being seemed to pick up speed and get within 20 feet of me. Then I saw what appeared to be a huge wolf, but there was something different about the wolf. He had stopped and stared at me, quite a menacing stare, as our as our as our eyes appeared to look into each other. Then a very disturbing feeling overtook me. I was unable to unlock the beast eyes from mine. When I did shake it off, I rushed back to my Jeep and sped off down the road. In more than a few seconds, I saw this creature in my rearview mirror as it gave chase. It gave chase to my vehicle and was gaining ground and gaining very quickly. I lost sight of this being. I was somewhat relieved, but also still panicking. Then I happened to look at my side view mirror and saw the beast running along the tree line. The creature was almost upon my Jeep. However, when I say running, I don't mean on all fours. This thing was now running upright on two legs. As it got close to my car, it paralleled my vehicle right up to my window. The creature peered into my car and it appeared to be smiling at me, but a dreadful, sinister smile that gave chills up and down my spine. I went to find my power window button to draw up my window, but I lost sight of the road ahead of me and I hit a pothole. I lost control of the Jeep and smashed into a tree off the side of the road. It seemed like several hours went by. Then I woke to my brother shaking me from inside my vehicle. I was planted on a tree on the side of the road. My brother was worried and checked me. He checked me out for injuries, broken bones, cuts, and so forth. He even asked me to recite the alphabet to make sure I was cognizant of my whereabouts. After realizing that I was okay, he asked me what had happened. I told him that I was running late and had decided to take the shortcut. He then asked me what had made me lose control of my car, suggesting a deer had bolted out in front of me. I figured this would be the easy way out. If I were there to tell the story of what had really happened, that's what I would have said. The family would have just brushed it off as a far-fetched excuse for my typical late behavior. I knew that this would be a story that most assuredly I would keep to myself about this creature. With that being said, it's a shame because I now suffer from PTSD and I continue to look over my shoulder in fear. I can't go through the forest, which makes it very hard due to the fact that when I visit, when I go to work, or when I play, 60% of where I live is covered with the forest and Mother Nature. I wish that I had never taken that shortcut, but I only have myself to blame for my troubles. Again, that's a perfect example, you guys, of what I'm talking about here. That was a story. It's in my book that this guy, again, a guy that's always late going somewhere, a guy who's probably the black sheep of the family, right? And for him to make up a story, if he were to tell what really happened to him about being chased down by this dogman type creature, certainly, you guys, we would all do it. We would laugh and say, whatever, dude, you're making up an excuse just to cover your ass because you're never on time. That's why I like doing what I do, man, because people need to tell these stories. The guy now suffers from PTSD, you know? So, like I always make mention of, all stories, I do people make up stories? Absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. There's no doubt. We all know that. But when people tell a story and they're not getting paid to tell you a story, if they're not getting 15 minutes of fame when they tell you a story, and if a lot of these stories that we've all heard have the same, how shall I say, there's a lot of, not coincidence, but there's a lot of the same commonalities that we've heard throughout the years. I'm going to believe you. I had never walked in these people's shoes. No one's walked in my shoes. I'll tell you what, you guys know my story. A Bigfoot that turned into a demon, for God's sakes. You know, I've never really been ridiculed for my story, but others have. Others have. And that's sad to me. That's sad to me. So that's why I like doing what I do today. So I like doing my two shows per week. That's why I enjoy writing the book. I enjoy putting out the videos. And you know what also I do enjoy all you guys. I appreciate all you guys coming in, spending it's 11:15 over here in Michigan, but I didn't expect to get a big turnout like this. Not that it's big, it's modest, 40 people, but thank you for that. You helped me pass some of the time in my day because I was kind of bored. I tell you guys, I had the death of this family. I'm doing this celebration of life this weekend, and could have been doing other things, but again, it's a family member that I love, and so I was kind of down. And I said, you know what makes me happy is talking to you. It really does, and I don't say that just to blow smoke up your asses. I respect and love each and every single one of you for subscribing and tuning in during the shows and watching the videos and hearing what I have to say on our show. Because I do have two great shows on Tuesday, 9 o'clock at night, me and Tex, Beyond BMR. Thursdays, 1 o'clock with Krista Tweedy from the Blondes and the Booze. We do brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob together. Two great shows. And of course, my buddy Jessica Jones, Cryptid Huntress. Check her out. She's on Spaced Out Radio, 10 o'clock in the East, Saturday and Sunday. And yeah, thanks for coming on in. Love you, love. Haven't seen you in a while. Riker, Freaky, Poncho Zorch, Griff, Neoma, Sea Duke, Susan Woodcarver. Bunch of you guys. Jessica S. Raymond, Derek, Midwest. Yeah. If I miss you, I miss you. I do apologize. Y'all know I love each and every single one of you. And without you, not to sound corny, without you, I wouldn't do this. So I do it for the people. And of course, I'm not going to lie. I do it for myself too, right? It's therapy for me. And if I can make a couple bucks, what the hell? Why not? I'm honest with everybody. And that's the way I like to keep it. I like to keep it odd. I like to keep it honest. And I love you guys. So next time, today's Friday night. You'll probably see me Tuesday Beyond BMR. And then I forget who's on Tuesday, but Thursday, a little different show for me and Krista. I've got a UFO experiencer and researcher who has seen UFOs in the state of Michigan. That should be a fascinating show. I appreciate and love each and every single one of you. Until next time, I'm Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Have a great weekend.